study at all ancient history or scriptures for that matter, they're full of stories of people traveling, people on a journey. People start out somewhere, are given a task or a challenge. They have to go through obstacles and different things in order to meet that challenge or to complete that task. And it's always done in this manner in which there's a place to go and there's several stops along the way. There's several things that need to happen. And so this idea of journey and travel is sort of this built into our DNA from the very beginning of time. It's a part of why faith is so important in higher education. As we have been talking about for this series for the month of January, last week we reminded ourselves of how much faith was a part of the founding of schools and colleges all over the United States. Wingate University is not unique in the fact that we were started by a church. Literally hundreds of universities and colleges in the United States were founded by churches and religious organizations, in part because they knew the education of their children was important, in part because they wanted their children to grow up and become good, solid citizens and good Christians. For Baptist, it was because we wanted the children that we raised to be smart enough to make their own decisions about life and about their journey. It's easy as a parent to often fall into this hole or this rut in which you just want to tell your kids what to do. After all, don't we know best for you? Have you had these kind of conversations with your parents? Have you had these conversations where you felt like they're just basically telling you what to do? Now, sure, at times they need that. You have to go to school. You're only 3 years old. You're not smart enough to live on your own yet. I have a 12-year-old that is fully convinced that given the resources could completely function in the world on her own. And I always tell her, well, of course, given the resources, but that's what you do to sort of grow and learn to get the resources to do that. We oftentimes really do want to just sort of say, this is what you need to do, this is where you need to go, and this is how you need to get there. But that's not faith, and that's not even being a good parent. I think good parenting is sort of giving some advice, providing some opportunities, and then, watching what's going on, making sure you don't fall in the ditch, but for the most part, sort of letting you decide what needs to happen and allowing you to react to what happens, both good and bad. That's what people in Scripture did all the time. There was this call of to go do this, or go here and do this, or this is what I want you to live out. And then there was sort of this, here we go. I often use this story of Moses and the people of Israel coming out of Egypt, and they were promised the promised land, but it wasn't easy. But that story becomes one of the most critical and foundational stories of the Jewish faith. Because it wasn't, we're out of Israel, here's a promised land, good on you. There was struggle. There was adversity. There was difficulty. And we all know, even though we oftentimes don't like it, that those struggles and those adversities and those difficulties make us better and help us to appreciate and know that where we are is where we're supposed to be. I wished it was easier sometimes. I wish that we could just sort of have open book tests and open book exams and just sort of let you be able to, all of you make straight A's and do well. But we know that life is not always open book, and sometimes there will be things that come upon you that you will need to be prepared, and there won't be a lot of resources available right then to help you. And so we make you learn. We make you remember. We make you understand what it is to think well, to write well, to speak well, to know what is going on in your life, and specifically maybe in the life of what you're focused on. I want the person who's operating on my heart, I've not had a heart operation, this is hypothetical, but I want the person that is operating on my heart to not have to look at a medical book in the middle of the surgery to figure out what that is. In the same way, I want the people that are doing things like educating my children to know what's the best way that I could work with this kid and help them learn to maximize their potential. So today I want to talk a little bit about navigation and the role of faith in higher education. Centuries ago, if you wanted to get from point A to point B, it would depend on how far apart those two places are. Oftentimes there may be only one road, and so you just got on that road and you knew it would take you to where you wanted to be. Sometimes the place was thousands of miles away and you needed something more than just a road. You needed to be able to understand what was going on and to be able to navigate correctly in order to get to where you wanted to be. If you're a physics major, maybe you've talked about this, or if you play golf, it's another sort of analogy. If I'm wanting to end up 1,000 miles that way and I veer off 1 inch right here, when I get 1,000 miles, I am a long ways away from where I wanted to be. Same way with golf. I play golf. I play at golf, and you're supposed to sort of hit the ball square with the face, and it's supposed to go straight out into the fairway, but oftentimes that is not the way it turns out. And I can just move it 1/4 of an inch or whatever, and it's in the woods. You need to have good tools in order to figure out where you need to end up and what you need to do. Now, the good news is you can miss by 1/4 of an inch, or you can miss by several miles and still get back on the right track. That's the role of faith. Think of the stories of Moses in Exodus. They wandered around in the desert for 40 years trying to get to where they were wanting to go. And there were times when God actually said to Moses, you know what, I'm done. I'm wiping them all out. And Moses said, nope, that's not a good idea. And God's like, okay, but you're going to have to wander in the desert for 40 years. You're going to have to struggle and get through it in order to appreciate it. And you're going to have to get to a place where when it doesn't turn out exactly like you thought it would, you give up. That's sort of what had happened. Moses, as we read, had gone up on the mountain, and he was up there for a good long time. It's funny, in that story, there's a place in which the people were invited to go up on the mountain as well, and they were like, nope, Moses, you go take care of that for us. Some of it was they were scared, they weren't quite sure what was going on, but they decided that they would just have the representative tell them what God said. Well, while he's up there for a while, the people get a little restless. They make a golden calf, they worship it. Moses comes down, throws the 10 Commandments to the ground. It's pretty miffed. God is very upset. And he actually says to Moses, I'm thinking, this is the Dane Jordan interpretation, one of my favorite passages in the Bible because it allows me to understand the depth of God's mercy. He says, I'm just going to kill them all. If they're going to treat me this way, I'm going to get rid of them all. And then Moses, in essence, says to them, now that wouldn't look very good, would it? You bring them out here, everybody knows what's happened. You basically escaped one of the most powerful governments and armies in the world, and everybody knows this. You've gotten away from Egypt. You're no longer slaves, only to bring them out here and kill them all? That's not good PR for you. And so there's struggle and there's strife and there's constant overcoming. Moses makes a mistake that actually causes him to not be able to go into the promised land. What? I've often said that at the end of the day, based off of what Moses saw and what he lived out, and in this passage right before we read, he asked to see God, and so God passes by and he sees the back of God's glory. And he would have these conversations with God that would be so meaningful and so powerful that his face would glow when he came out. I often think that at the end of it, as Moses stood there and watched the people go, he really wasn't too disappointed. Because he thought to himself, I've gone through some things that are way better than a land flowing with milk and honey. I'm pretty satisfied with where I am. Today, if you want to get somewhere, you have multiple options. They used to make these things, I don't know if you know this or not, but they used to make these things called maps. And on those maps, they had roads marked out. And you could follow the road on a map and figure out how to get from here to Parsippany, New Jersey. Does anybody know where Parsippany, New Jersey is? It's outside of New York City. I've been there several times. And you could just drive and get there. Now, you can just say into your phone, or I can say into my phone, navigate to Parsippany, New Jersey. And Siri tells me the whole way to get there, reminding me multiple times that in 500 feet, turn left. Turn left. In 1 mile, turn right. And then for 500 miles, stay on this road. And if I stop to go to the bathroom, please get back on the route. And that, you've got all these tools in order to get you where you need to be. And yet sometimes we are not quite as good on the journey as we really need to be. I was reminded of that this past fall. My grandparents, who I was very, very close to, and both have passed away, and I spoke or preached at both of their funerals. Very, very important people in my life. They lived outside of Washington, D.C. For most of my childhood. And so there were several summers or weeks during the summer or times throughout the year where I would go to Washington, D.C. and spend time with them, or my family would go. And one of my most vivid memories was going to this place on the Potomac River. There's a walkway that sort of goes all the way from Alexandria into D.C. It's several miles or 100 miles or more, I don't even know. But along that way, there's places to fish. And my grandfather would always take me to this one place to fish, and we would talk and sit, and my dad would go, and we would get different things, pack a lunch, all that kind of stuff. And they lived in this neighborhood not far from there. And several months ago, I was in D.C. I had been to a meeting there, and my flight wasn't going to leave until several hours. And I thought, I wonder if I could go find that place again. I didn't have an address. I had a general idea of where it was, but I was amazed at how I started, and as I was going along, I hadn't been there in 50, no, I'm only 46. I hadn't been there in 30 years probably. So a lot had changed, but there were still things that were the same. The fishing place was still there. And I swear it still had the same bench that we used to sit on. And then I went, I wonder if I can find where they used to live. So I went and I looked, and there was the one landmark was this idea that, or this drive-in movie. For those of you who don't know, drive-in movies is a place. There's one in Albemarle. If you ever get a chance to go, it's one of the 100 things you should do before you graduate from Wingate. Go to the one outside of Albemarle, drive-in movie. You take your car in, I don't know, do they have a radio there now? But you used to put a speaker in your window and you could watch the movie and listen to it in your car. So it was right outside where they lived. It's not there anymore. There's a Walmart and a Lowe's there. And I saw where I thought the entrance would be, and I turned in, sure enough, there it is. Went in there, all these memories started coming back. Got out of the car, cried almost like a baby, which I'm sure scared a couple people. Who's this guy coming? Because just you remembered all this stuff about your parents. And it reminded me that I had more fun and more meaning on that journey where I wasn't quite sure where I was going. I wasn't quite sure how to get there. But once I did, it made the destination so much sweeter. That is why we have faith in higher education. Because we know that there are things out there for you that are wonderful and amazing. And we know that there is somewhat of a plan for you to get there. And we also know ways in order for you to be able to tap into that plan and to understand where you want to be, because that place is where you are going to be most satisfied, most fulfilled, and most happy. There's a great book by Richard Rohr called Falling Up. And he talks about how the life of Christianity and the life put forward by Jesus makes sense when you use the term falling up. Now think about that. You're falling, but you're going up. That doesn't make any sense. But Jesus always said these things like the first shall be last and the last shall be first. You must die to yourself in order to live. You must be able to think about what's really truly important and put away everything else that everybody else may be understanding or telling you is important. Money and fame and wealth do not buy happiness. It's okay to have them, but if that's your only goal, you're missing the point. Faith in Christianity and a faithful Christian in Christ tells us that serving others and doing what God has called us to do is where we find happiness, fulfillment, joy. Listen to this quote by Thomas Merton, who was an American monk. He said, he pointed out that we may spend our whole life climbing the ladder of success, only to find when we get to the top that our ladder is leaning against the wrong wall. I think that's true sometimes. I think we live in a world in which the things that are most celebrated and the most important in the world are not that important in God's world. The things that we think will ultimately give us happiness and joy and peace and fulfillment, once we get there, do not. And that's the role of faith in higher education, to tell you that, I know this may be important right now, but it's not going to be in the future. And sometimes it's important for us to give you perspective. I had a funny conversation with Jen Nelson, who works in my office, the other day, who at some point described herself as quite distraught over what was going on in her life at that moment. And what was going on was her, she had, as a freshman, she had somehow or somewhere purchased a shower head that she absolutely loved. So much so that she has kept it with her for 6 years now, and wherever she moved, she would go and install this shower head. And it broke. And her water pressure wasn't good. She couldn't wash her hair well. Her dog had woken up earlier that morning. It was cold when she walked. She picked the dog up. It peed on her. I was like, golly, how are you doing? I mean, how are you able to even function today? And then she knew what was coming next. She goes, I know. Several thousand people are dying of hunger-related diseases today. So it's that hashtag first world problems. Have you seen that on Twitter? You know, my curling iron doesn't work. That's a first world problem. I said, you know, there are people in the world, there are women in the world that spend most of their day walking miles with a bucket so they can get water for their family and then walking miles back wishing they had a broken shower head. So part of our role is to give you some sort of perspective in life, to help you understand that when the bad happens, when a game is lost, when a B is made, or a C, or a D, depending on your history there, the world will go on and you'll make it. You can overcome that. And I'm sorry, because this frustrates me as well, but when the Wi-Fi doesn't work, the rest of the world continues. When the Wi-Fi goes down, as you're binge watching How to Make a Murderer, or is it Making of a Murderer? I'm in the middle of watching it right now. I can't believe it. It's crazy. I'm thinking about doing a sermon series on it. If that was to cut off in the middle, my wife would go ballistic. She is so caught up in this right now. I always try to remind myself that at any given event, as much as I may get upset that Duke has lost 3 games in a row in basketball and my beloved Pittsburgh Steelers didn't make it to the next round of the playoffs, several billion people in China had no idea that was even going on. That's a part of our role as faith, is to tell you that, there needs to be some perspective here. Finally, our role is to give you the navigational tools to figure it out. And I want you to think of it this way. We try to give you the tools to help you make your own map and your own way. It would be so much easier to just give you the map. But we know that once you would get there, it wouldn't be nearly as meaningful as if you'd figured it out for yourself. It's the way I operate as a minister, which sometimes people like, sometimes people are frustrated about. There's sort of growing in ministry these sort of 2 different dynamics of the way you do it. One way is the minister stands there and tells you, here are the 12 steps you need to do in order to get to this place. And then there's those that are me that are like, I know that if you do these things, there's a possibility you get to there, but you really need to try out for yourself and see what works for you. I wished I could give you all the answers. I can give you a lot of the answers, but I can't give you all the answers. And even some of them I won't give you because I know it's more important for you to learn them for yourself. It's harder that way, but it's much more meaningful for you. So, we make you take GPS, and we make you take Bible classes. We make you go to faith lyceums. We make you think about service in your life because we know those things are important. That those things are way more important than some of the other things we may be chasing after. And we just want you to think about that. To at least let you consider it. If you don't do it, we'll still love you anyway. I often tell you, if you've been around me long enough, I'm the least judgmental minister you'll ever meet. You can come up and tell me what I've said is a bunch of bunk, and I'll be like, okay, that's not the first time I've heard it, probably won't be the last. But I think it's important for you to at least to consider and to reframe one question in your life that I will close with. You've been asked this question since you were little probably. What do you want to do when you grow up? And I want you to ask it this way. What do you think God wants you to do when you grow up? And then be excited about the journey that God's going to put out there for you. And know that at the end, it'll all be worth it. Amen.